everyone, welcome to our channel, Rebecca Stu and the Crew. I'm Rebecca, and today we are doing a DIY pom-pom and a farmhouse basket. So let's go over our supplies from the Dollar Tree. This week we are going to be using either some embroidery needles if you can find them, or you can use this hair weaving needle and thread set. That's what I used. Also, we're going to be needing some false lashes that can be cut to size or the individual lash extensions. We'll also need some yarn for the main fur color. I'm going to use taupe. We'll need pink yarn for the center of the ears and the nose, and a fur color for the face, chin, and nose area. We'll also need yarn for the eye color. Then we're going to need some ribbon for the neck. That is optional. I'm going to use this baby head wrap. For the basket, we'll use the various size of pom-pom makers from Dollar Tree and a few bags of the mini twine carrots. We'll also use a tiny bit of hot glue and a few different pairs of scissors. We'll also use this faux wood planter. And then from Hobby Lobby, the items I used was this felting needle. You can just use one of the embossing tools that they have. Also a tapestry needle that's extra long called a tatty needle, which is optional. So let's get crafty. So we're going to wrap 1/3 of the first half of the pom-pom maker with white yarn. And we're going to wrap this about 15 to 20 times in a nice straight layer. So you don't really have to double up here. You just want to wrap about 15 to 20 times at this 1/3 mark. So this is going to be around the mouth and nose area. So you don't want to get it too thick just yet. We're going to layer more white on top of this once we do a few other colors here. So then once you have it wrapped about 15 to 20 times, you're just going to cut off the excess yarn, even with the pom-pom maker at the top. And then just use the end of your scissors to take that loose piece of thread or yarn and tuck it underneath of the loops you just created. So this is what it looks like so far. Now taking our pink yarn that's going to be for the nose, we are going to start in the center of the white that we just wrapped. So about right in the middle of the white. And we're going to start wrapping to the right towards the end, covering all of the white right there on the end. And I just wrap right to the very end of the white, making sure all of it's covered. And I make about 2 passes just to make sure it's nice and filled in. And then we'll cut the excess pink ribbon off and we'll tuck that yarn underneath of the yarn that we just looped on there. Now we're going to go back in with our white yarn. And we're going to layer some more white yarn. So we're going to go right back on top of the white portion and wrap all the way down past the pink and make sure all of the pink is covered. So as you can see, I started where I had started the last time. And I'm going to be real careful to make sure that all of the pink is covered the first time I pass over this. And then I ended up going back and forth over the white and pink yarn about 2 or 3 passes just to make it a little bit thicker, because this is going to be all of that white fur around the chin, the nose, and the mouth area. So you want it a little bit thick, but not too thick. So about 3 times back and forth should be enough. Then you'll cut the excess off and tuck in your end. And I went just a tad bit past the pink there. So now we're going to start wrapping the uncovered plastic with the darker fur color. So I'm using the taupe. I start at the white and then I start working my way towards the left on the other end of the pom-pom maker that isn't covered with any yarn yet. And I just keep adjusting the yarn to make sure that it's nice and tight and there are no open spaces. And that way I know it's going to be really filled in when I cut this off of the pom-pom maker. So you wrap all the way to that end of the half circle and then work your way back towards the white. And since we did about 4 or 5 rows of color with the white and pink, we'll do the same with the taupe until we get about the same amount of thickness that the white and pink is. As you can see here, they're about even thickness now. So now I'll start wrapping the taupe color over top of the white and pink yarn back to that other end. And I'll try to cover all of that white yarn It's okay if you don't get it on the first pass because we're going to keep going back and forth a few times. I think I went over it about 3 or 4 more times and filled in some thickness before I started to add the coloring for the eyes. So we're going to wrap this pretty full because I want a nice large bunny head. So I tuck in that excess yarn for the taupe color. And now we're going to do the eyes. So I'm going to take the black yarn and we're going to go just a tad bit past the halfway mark. So remember the end that you started on is that opened end on the right. That's where the mouth and the nose are at. So you want your eyes to be closer to where your pom-pom connects at. That top portion's more towards the top of the face. And you're going to wrap about 15 to 20 times in a real nice tight area. Try to keep it together. This is where the eyes are going to be. So just remember you're going a little bit past the center and think about, where eyes would be on a face. Now I'm taking some more of the white yarn. I'm going back on the end that the nose and things were at the first time we wrapped it and adding just a little bit more of the white. And this will be the chin area just to add some two-tone dimension and colors to the bunny's fur. So I wrap about 10 times around where the chin will be. And now I'm just going to finish wrapping the first whole half of the pom-pom with the dark brown taupe colored fur. So we'll go over the eyes and completely cover that dark black. And then we'll go over the white that's down at the end for the chin. And we'll just keep wrapping this until we have it about as full as we can get it and still be able to close the pom-pom. So it's going to be pretty full. And instead of having that arc, it's going to be almost flat at the bottom. You won't have that big arced space. That's how you know you have it pretty full and probably full enough that you'll be able to stop and start working on the other end. So now that we've got it pretty full, what we're going to do is make the ears. So see how I'm holding it with my finger up and I'm looping the yarn over my finger. So I'm going to do this about 10 times with the taupe color. And again, this is up at the top above where the eyes are at. And these are going to become the ears. So we're making these bigger loops, about 10 of them with the taupe. And then that will be the last bit of taupe we use at the top. So we'll go ahead and cut that off. And then we'll just start wrapping it with some of the pink color because that will be the center of the ears. So just make sure you have the larger loops kind of combined and pulled together while you tuck in that end piece that you cut. And they'll stay together fairly easily on their own. So then just go ahead and add a few rows of the pink around your finger as well, just to make sure that you're going to have the center for color for the ears. So I wrapped that about 5 or 6 times, I believe. And then we'll cut that excess off. And just pull it, make sure it stays together. It should stay together without a problem, but you can clip it with a little clothespin or something if you need to. So now the face is complete. We're going to wrap the other end of the pom-pom maker in just the darker fur color. So this is going to be the back of the head. And you can do the white kind of mixed in with it if you want. You can just kind of layer it back and forth. I just wanted it to be a solid color in the back. So I just wrapped this whole half with the taupe colored yarn. And so I have it filled in and about the same amount of thickness as the face. As you can see, it's pretty full. We'll tuck in our end and then we'll close up the pom-pom. So I do have the Dollar Tree pom-pom makers, but I have these this set here from Hobby Lobby as well. And this is just the one that I grabbed out of the drawer, but they're both the same size, the large one and the one that I had from Hobby Lobby. So don't forget your ears are right there. So you want to make sure that they stay bunched up together before you close your pom-pom maker. And then whichever one you're using, you're just going to close it up and then latch it to make sure it stays closed. And now all pom-pom makers are basically 2 circles that are shoved together. So they all have this little row in between where you can fit your scissors, and that's the track that you're going to follow to trim your yarn. So now that the ends are closed, to create our circle, we're just going to take our sharp scissors. I really like these small thread scissors from Dollar Tree. They're the perfect size and actually really sharp. It makes it pretty easy to cut through all of this yarn, which can be a pretty hard thing to do because of how thick it is. So we're just going to follow that track, and we're just going to cut the whole bit of yarn all the way around the circle. And as you can see, it starts to pop open. I believe I'm doing the back of the head first. So it's just going to be all of the brown color. Here's what it looks like. And then we're going to do the face. So this is the chin. As you can see, when it pops open, you can see the nose and the mouth. And then we'll see the eyes here in just a second. And then, of course, you want to get through like the forehead portion and then the ears. So it makes it easier if you cut through the ears once you get to those and separate them on either side, then finish cutting the fur up around the top. Now, don't open your pom-pom just yet. You want to take a long piece of thread and wrap it through the center where we cut, and then tie and wrap it a few times before you remove the pom-pom off of the pom-pom maker. That way all of your threads don't fall apart. So tie it really tight. Use a couple passes if you need to. Just make sure you have it as tight as you can get it so that it isn't going to fall apart. Then go ahead and open up your pom-pom maker and pull off your pom-pom. So as you can see the facial features here. It doesn't quite look like a bunny just yet, but we're going to work on that. So now the goal here is to start shaping the head. We're going to cut it into a pear shape. So it's wide at the bottom and more narrow at the top, but you want to be careful that you don't accidentally cut off the ears. So when you trim up around the eyes and things, it makes a lot of sense to kind of just grab the ears and hold on to them while you're cutting around them so that you don't cut them off. But as you can see, like around the eyes, I really kind of went in and made almost like a little gully type indentation around the eyes. And then I go in with some smaller scissors later and I really trim up around it and try to define the line where the eyes are at. And then kind of narrow the bridge up between the eyes and just, try to shape it like you would a bunny. You can look at a picture online or maybe a drawing or coloring book page of like a bunny. That would help as well, just to get that kind of 3D shape. You want the muzzle of the nose not to be cut away too much. You want it to stick out further than like the bridge in the forehead. And you just want to work in small sections. It's easier to take more off. You can't put it back on. You'd have to start over. So always start slow and just trim. It's going to be the most time consuming part is this trimming part. So just keep shaping it and then go around to the back. And I just kept working my way around. Now the ears, we're going to be using the felting needle, or again, you could use like the embossing needle tools from Dollar Tree. You just need something sharp, and it would help if you had a piece of foam or a pool noodle, which I forgot to put in the supply list, but that helps to be able to use to kind of poke through the yarn, and then it's going to kind of bind it together. You'll see when we get to it. But as you can see, I go in with some of my smaller scissors to even up these lines. You want to cut it pretty short, like portions of the fur, because it really helps to make it look more like fur when you get it trimmed up. So as you can see here, I have it trimmed out pretty well, and we're ready to start working on the ears. So we're going to pull the pink strands of yarn away from the brown because we're going to work on these separately. So then if you have a comb, this also will help a lot. You just want to kind of comb out the fur or the yarn. That's going to help separate those strands a little bit to make it easier to use the felting needle. So any comb that you have at home, I just had one of these wire combs, which I like a lot, that I use for crafting, and it helps to separate that fur. Now you do want to hold on to the ear pieces while you're combing them, because if you don't, you'll rip them right out of the pom-pom if they're not tied tight enough. So hold on to the bottom portion. So then I take the felting needle on top of a piece of a pool noodle, and you just start poking at it. And what that's doing is it's combining all those fibers of the yarn together to create almost like a wool or furry kind of look to it. It's really neat how it works. You really just poke at it, and then I just keep pulling that top of the ear together to make like a point. And you just want to keep doing this until you can tell that it's combined. And then trim your pink fur down just a little bit so it's a little bit shorter than the brown portion, and you'll do the same to combine it. And then once you're done, you can go ahead and trim around the ears just to shape them up and even them up a little bit. Now, the ears were sitting a little bit lower than I like, but that's okay because you can fix them later by just pulling them together and putting a little stitch to hold them together. And we're going to add eyelashes and trim the nose later. But here's a side profile of the face, and we showed you the back. So now we're going to make the body. I make mine 2 different colors. So we have the back of the bunny we did first, wrapping it in just the brown yarn. And then the front of the bunny, we're going to give him a white stomach. So we're going to start with the white yarn. Again, you're just going to keep pushing it together. And we're just going to wrap about 2/3 of it, leaving about 1/2 inch on either side so that we can wrap the brown around it and then over top of the center of the stomach. So I just fill in the yarn at the bottom portion here until it's about as thick as the white yarn. And then I just work my way all the way around the pom-pom maker, filling it in over top of the white until it's the same thickness on both sides of the pom-pom maker. So very similar to what we just did, except we're just doing 2 colors this time, and it's just a white tummy and the rest of it is all in the brown. So now we're going to tie it just like we did with the face after we've cut all of the strands. And then what I did is I trimmed it to look kind of like a triangular shape, like a 3D triangle or pyramid. I guess you could say a little bit more flat at the bottom. So here's a view from the side. And now we're going to make brown pom-poms, 2 small for the paws and 2 larger ones for the back legs. So these are the front paws before I shaped them. And here's what they look like once I cut them, kind of like in a teardrop shape. And then the back legs were just pom-poms, and I cut them flat on the sides, the back, and part of the middle. And I left kind of like a little puffy ball in the front, which would be like the toe area. So you just want to shape them up like a rabbit's foot. And then of course, just the little pom-pom for the tail. So now we have all the pieces and we're ready to put it together. So now we're going to use the longest needle you have and some thread. So I'm using a long embroidery needle, and all I did was I doubled up my thread and I just poke it right through the middle of the pom-pom and then through the top portion of the little front paws that I made. It's just going to grab onto those fibers and pull them together. And you could just do it a couple times, then just fluff up the fur around it and you won't even see the embroidery thread or the weaving thread that you use. So as you can see, I just poked the needle right through the top portion. I just go through it a few times and you can't see the thread. I just shove it right through the pom-pom body, kind of all over. So it's connected really well and I don't have to worry about it being knocked free. So I put both of the front paws on without cutting my thread, and then I just went ahead and tied that in a knot, and then I'll cut off the excess. So the 2 front paws are on. And now for the back legs, we're going to just take the string, push it right through the side, like the hip area of the rabbit's foot, and then we'll go right through the side of the pom-pom and pull that foot up to the side. And then we'll take the other foot and just take the needle and go right through the side of that pom-pom. Then pull them nice and tight and then just kind of make a loop and go back through the whole pom-pom and the legs about 2 or 3 times until you have them secured on really well, and then cut your thread and tie it. As you can see, I'm just going right back through the legs and the belly there. Then you can trim and shape up around the legs and things if you need to help blend them in for if there's any like thread that's longer than other pieces. Now for the tail, we're going to just pass the thread right through the tail and then tie a knot so that it stays in the pom-pom here for the tail. Just making a really thick knot. And then we'll attach the tail to the back using the same technique. We'll just pass it right through a thicker portion of the pom-pom. and then pull that tail up into place, and then just pass that thread through a few times. And what's so nice about the pom-pom is they're so fluffy. You don't see this embroidery thread once you kind of fluff it up and you've got it sewn on. So I go through the tail a few times and make sure it's connected to the body really well. And then I'll cut off that excess string and just tie a really good knot and hide that down into the fur. So as you can see, I do try to pass it through the thicker main part of the larger pom-pom because I feel like that's where it's going to hold it together the best. So we've got all of the legs on and the tail. Here's a view from the bottom. And now we're going to do the head. This is where that tatting needle comes in handy. If you can find one, they have them at Hobby Lobby. And all you're going to do is just stick it right up through from the bottom all the way up through to the neck and then go straight through the head. And then pull, and it'll pull your head towards the body, and then just loop over and go right back and pass the needle all the way down through the body, and do that about 2 or 3 times to secure it on well. Once you have it down enough that it's not moving around, you'll know you've done it enough times. Just make sure that your head hasn't twisted sideways and that it's still in the same position that you wanted it in before you tie it off. Before you cut your thread, this is where you can pull your ears up together and put a small stitch to hold the two of them together. So then I just take my scissors and I trim around the neck area just a little bit to make sure I have a little bit of a definition between the body and the head. I didn't want it to look like it was all blending into one piece. You just trim up a little bit. And kind of fluff as you go. So here's a view of him from the back, and then the side and the front. So now we're going to add a small amount of glue to the lashes and tuck the lashes into the yarn to hide the ends. So these are black, so they kind of blend into the eye portion fairly well, but it is a little bit nicer if you take something to help you kind of tuck it down in behind the yarn. Just in case your glue dries white, you won't be able to see it. So I added the lash extensions to both eyes. And then the nose area, it was kind of hard to see, so I took some more of that dark thread and I used it to outline. So all I'm going to do is poke it in underneath of the corner of the nose and then take the needle and go right through past the nose. And once I have it under the nose area, I just go back over it from the top and go back over where I started with the needle, and I put the needle through one more time. So I just pull that yarn over, go right back in where I went the first time, and back out where I came through the first time. So you're basically doing like a back stitch. And then just pull, and then the thread will tuck down in behind the yarn just a little bit, but it's enough that you're still able to see that darker line a tad, and it helps the nose to stick out. I don't think I used enough pink, or I didn't trim it right. This is the first one I've ever made. So, it's my first try, so I don't think I quite have it down pat just yet. So usually you don't have to trim it with the embroidery thread, but I thought it looked better with it. So as you can see, I did the same thing. I just went corner to corner, and then I did the same thing again, and then pull that, and then it leaves that nice dark line. And then we go in down here at the bottom corner, up to the top corner. We're making a triangle. And then bring your yarn down and go back into the hole that you just did. And fluff up your yarn as you go, just to make sure that you're not pulling too much of it down underneath of the yarn. So just go right back into that corner and back up where I came out the last time. And I just made one pass all the way around the nose. Then just go ahead and cut and tie that off. I made a very simple little bow here, and I'll tie that around the neck a few times in a double knot and also hide the piece that I used to tie it on with underneath of the fur. And this is our bunny all finished. Now you can pull the ears up higher if you haven't done so already and just stitch those together if they're too far apart. As you can see, I pulled mine up just a little bit. Here's a side view and then a view from the back. Now we're going to work on, kind of putting him in a display. So I have this hair bow from the Dollar Tree in this basket. I'm just going to wrap the hair bow around the basket. Very simple. Going to take a wood block, just something you have at home, doesn't have to be anything special, and fill that in the middle of your planter. And I glued that down just to help it stay in place. Then I take all these larger twine carrots from Dollar Tree. I think I had 4 bags, and I just filled them in all the way around the little wood block that I just put there. It doesn't have to be a wood block. It could be anything you have that will just help your bunny to sit higher and create an open space, but tight enough that you can stick all these carrots around and keep them in place. Then I had a few of the smaller ones that they've had out the last few years at Dollar Tree. So I tucked those in around the corners there to fill it in a little bit more. And then I just stick my bunny right on top to make him look like he is sitting in the basket of carrots. And that's how I'm displaying him. And this is our little bunny in his basket of carrots. I love it so much. I thought this pom-pom animal was so fun to make that I wanted to give credit. So I found this pattern at this blog site here, and the body, the hands and arms and everything, those were my creation. But I want to give credit for the pattern that I found online. If you guys like this video, I do DIY videos every single Thursday and Dollar Tree videos every Friday. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. And here are some other videos from our channel you might also enjoy. Have a great day, everyone.